Right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening. I greet to everyone, especially Dr. Shuʿayb Eric Winkel, for today's session, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Alhamdulillah, bi'izzatihi wa bini'matihi, we have been able to be here today, together here to learn about Ibn Arabi's philosophy, inshallah, with the title of Parabolas, and the lām-alif, the secrets of Ibn Arabi's secret of love. So, alhamdulillah, we have Dr. Eric Winkel in the house. I can say he is an expert in Ibn Arabi, inshallah. And as usual, today's session we have his lecture, and also after that we will open Q&A session for the audiences to ask any related and relevant questions to the topic that he will be lecturing, inshallah. So, Doctor, I think I would like to invite you. You are cordially invited, inshallah. Tafaddal mashkura.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
It's good to be here. So we'll look at parables and parabolas, and we'll look at the lām-alif. And of course, any questions you have about Ibn Arabi, it'd be good to work with that. I'll try to answer them and respond to them. Right now I'm working on the first ever complete translation and commentary of the Futuhat al-Makkiyah. And for 800 years, there has not been a translation and commentary which is complete. And so this is the first ever. This is the first one. It's happening right now. And many books have come out, been published already. The website to follow to find out what's published and what's happening next is thefutuhat.com. So we'll look today at the lām-alif as a way to enter into Ibn Arabi's world. And the world of view, what he has been shown is the counsel. He has been given counsel from Haqq. He received it twice. And this counsel that he transmits and he conveys is to all of us. And it's especially important now at this time. This is a very important time in humanity's history. And so we really do need Ibn Arabi's counsel at this moment. So I'll share the screen and we'll look at some of the lām-alif, and that will be our way of entering into some of the ideas about Ibn Arabi. So you'll have a number of questions. People will know about his being controversial and so on. And this would be a way of showing what Ibn Arabi, how he speaks, what he speaks about, how he talks, what his ideas are, what his images are. And then you'll be able to see, I think, so as you're watching this, also think about, so why does the controversy come up and what's happening there? So this first slide here, we have the presence of creation and creator. So this is the first key. So one of the ideas about Ibn Arabi, he's telling us about the creator and creation. And he sees that creator and creation are separate and distinct and somehow related and somehow connected. So the way they're connected is important now. So let's follow this now with the alif, the lām-alif. So the lām-alif is the 29th letter. So you already know that as a 29th letter that something special is going on with the lām-alif. The lām-alif is the key to lām-alif is when it's written, there are many ways of writing the lām-alif, but one of the ways of writing them is to have a confusion between which one is alif and which one is lam. So which one is the A and which one is the L. So al, alif, lam is the definitive noun, the. So when you say the something, you've defined what you're looking at. And it's positive, it's existence, it's something that is. And so positive. So that's al. When the lam comes first, lām-alif, then the word is la, no, negation. So one direction is positive, the other direction is negation, negative. And so with the lām-alif, we don't know which one comes first. So we don't know if something is going to be positive or negative, whether it's going to be al or la. So this is the beauty of lām-alif. It helps us, it gives us confusion. And Ibn Arabi will always tell us the more confusion we have about Allah and who is the Zat, the more we know about Allah, the more we know about the Zat. Because confusion is the opposite of definition and defining. So defining is when we bring something together and we put a wall around it and say, this is what it is, this is what it means. And the Zat, which is a feminine noun, so we can say she, the Zat, she is never accessible to definition. She can never be fenced in and say, this is the Zat, and I now know the Zat. So because she is inaccessible and cannot be defined, then we know that the more we are confused about her, the more we are closer to perceiving who she is. So more confusion is actually more knowledge. So this presence of creation and creator, the word la comes out twice in negation and twice in affirmation. So there's two negatives, two positives, la ilaha illallah. And so you follow this through and you can see how the lām-alif functions in this sentence and with what its syntax is. It comes out twice negatively and twice positively. So I use the convention of electrical convention, red for the negative and black for the positive. So right now, it's very clear that alif and lam are distinct. There is an alif and there is a lam, and they're not the same letter. So there is a creation and there is a creator, and they're not the same. However, there is a confusion as to which one is the creator, which one is the creation, which one is the alif, and which one is the lam. So this is where it's very important to see distinction with confusion. But always, there is no alif is the same as the lam, or merges into the lam, or has fana into the lam, or the lam has fana into the alif. They're not. They're distinct letters, alif, lam, lām-alif. But they are another letter. They are a unit, and they are a letter, the 29th letter. So you can now see where some of these controversies are coming if they don't understand something as simple as alif, lam, lām-alif. Okay, so in no way has anyone said, when we talk about lām-alif, that the alif is the lam is the alif. We're saying there's a confusion about which one is the alif, which one is the lam, and they are always distinct. And the function of them is negative or positive. So where this confusion comes about is the same confusion as when Ibn Arabi talks about haya. So haya is self-effacement or embarrassment. Every religion has its character, and the character of Islam is haya. So haya is self-effacement or shyness, the shrinking of the soul from foul conduct, embarrassment. It's something that keeps us from doing something that's embarrassing. But there's also this word haya is applied to Allah. So God will not spare to propound or refrain from propounding a parable. And so that God does not experience haya when propounding a parable. So a parable is a word which is thrown. So a parabola is the trajectory of a word that's thrown or a stone that's thrown. That makes a trajectory. And a parable is something that is thrown so that it can be seen next to. So you can see something next to it. So we have three here. We have that Allah does not experience haya when propounding a parable. We have two, that Allah will experience haya and cover up the old man's fault. We'll see the story in a moment. And that by Allah's covering of this haya, there's a resembling confusion. So in Arabic, the idea of confusion comes from ambiguity, that something resembles something else. So the lām-alif makes al, makes la, yes, and makes no. So Allah does not experience haya in making any parable, even of a gnat, of a tiny little insect. So Ibn Arabi takes this as that is, he does not give up making a parable with the lowest and most mean, worthless. Lowest and most worthless according to the ignorant person, because it is not worthless to God. And how can anyone be worthless who is exactly the indication pointing to God? The one indicated is magnified tremendously by the tremendous magnification of its indicator. So Allah does not have haya, embarrassment or shyness, about making a parable and making an indication, which is what a parable does. It indicates, it points to who Allah is. So who Allah is not, he is not ashamed or embarrassed or has haya to make a parable to say this gnat or this person or this or that indicates me. So if everything, therefore, Allah sees that everything indicates him. So everything is an indication to him. And so it doesn't matter whether that indication to us seems to be worthless or mean or low. To Allah, it is a perfect indicator to himself. So this is where we get Abu Yazid Bistami was asked about from the people, what is the most tremendous name of Allah? The Ism al-Azam. What is the most tremendous name of Allah? And he said, show me the least so that I may show you the most tremendous. So names of Allah, all of them are tremendous. So be true and take whatever divine name you wish. So show the least tremendous name. And then Bayazid Bistami says, and I can show you the most tremendous one, the Ism al-Azam. So which one is the least tremendous? Which one is the least indicative of Allah? None of them. All of them indicate Allah. So with this knowledge, and this is just a very straightforward knowledge. It's a very straightforward piece of knowledge. It's a secret in the sense that many people don't understand it. But when you do understand it, it's quite simple. So I met the teacher, Abu Ahmad bin Sayyid in Murcia. So this is back where Ibn Arabi was born, in Andalusia, Murcia. And a human being asked him. So he said a human being asked him. So not just a person asked him. So a human being is insan. So a human being is someone who is part of humanity. And one of the special features of humanity is that humanity takes on all of the divine names. And we know this because the lump of clay that was Adam and Eve, this lump of clay, was taught all of the names. So if this lump of clay, which is humanity, is taught all of the names, that means every name is known and can be shown through this lump of clay. So the humanity is able to show every divine name because humanity has learned every divine name. So a human being is someone who knows these things. A human being asked him about the Ism al-Azam, the most tremendous name of Allah. He threw a rock at him. Then he pointed to him, you are the most tremendous name of Allah. So the most tremendous name of Allah is you. Your name and your name and your name and your name is the most tremendous name of Allah because your name indicates the most tremendous indication, which is Allah. And no one's name or no one indicates Allah better than the other one. So rich people don't indicate Allah more than poor people. Ugly people do not indicate Allah less than beautiful people. So every name, every person is an indicator to the most tremendous, who is Allah. So everyone is the most tremendous name of Allah. And we don't have any gradations. There's none that are more or less. Ibn Arabi says that when we're looking for transcendence, tanzih, we end up in a situation where how can we have tanzih, that everywhere I look, I see my soul, and then I say that Allah is more than that, and that would be tanzih. That would be that Allah is subhanahu, that he is more and exalted beyond this. And the point is that if Allah is different from that, he's different from a great one and a small one at the same time. And that's why Allah does not get haya, embarrassment, to use a parable of a gnat, of the smallest insect, to indicate himself. So the story from the old man and where the resembling confusion comes is this one. So there's an old man who comes on the day of judgment, and he asks him for a reckoning, and he confirms his habitual faults and his slip-ups. But he, this old man, denies them entirely. So he affirms his veracity and says, okay, you're true. And he tells him to go to the garden. And in Ibn Arabi's other accounts, the angels who are to convey him to his place in the garden, based on his deeds, say to God, but you know he did these things. When he is asked about that, he says, I felt haya that I should call his white beard a lie. So I felt haya that I should call him a liar, that when he denied that he did those things. Now, as for his affirming his veracity, this is because haya is part of faith. And he is the faithful one, al-Mu'min. So Allah is the faithful one, al-Mu'min. You see, he affirmed the veracity of his accepting what God created in him, the disobediences and the offenses and everything God created him. So Allah affirmed that this person had these faults because that was what was created in him. If he had not accepted him, his, so the old man and Allah's, the fate would not have been carried out in him. As for his ṣallallāhu ʿalayhi wasallam word, that is haya brings only good, and God is ḥayyī, so he brings from his haya good. And what good is more tremendous than that he puts a cover over him and does not expose him and his faults, and covers up for him his faults and passes over his situation. So experience haya, Allah covers up the old man's fault. So you see, each presence has in her two faces. So hadra, presence, is feminine, so we use the gender noun, pronoun her. You see, each presence has in her two faces, a face to the true and a face to the slave. Thus the matter is arranged and ordered between Allah and his creation, and the two resemble each other, and this is where we have confusion because of resemblance, and you don't know who is who. The same way with the lām-alif. You don't know which one's the alif, which one's the lam. So which one is the alif, which one is the lam? In the lām-alif, this is a confusion because they resemble each other. They look like they are the same. We know they're not, and grammatically there is no confusion that there's an alif and there is a lam. There's a creator, there's a creation. There's no confusion. They are distinct. But as they are written, they resemble each other, and we don't know which one is the lam and which one is the alif. Therefore, the true emerges visibly here with an adjective of the creation, and the creation emerges visibly with an adjective of the true. And the water skin matched its leather skin. Thus he envelops him and he neck embraces him, while God is independent of the world. So then with this mutual embrace and mutual accommodation emerges visibly the lām-alif as this, lām-alif like this. This is the aqd, the knot, and the rabat, a firm binding. So right at the bottom, there's a rabat, there's a fort, there's a firm binding, and taking covenants and binding obligations between Allah and his slaves. So Allah says, so fulfill completely my covenant, I will fulfill completely your covenant. So Allah binds himself to this covenant. So we have a covenant that we make with Allah, and Allah binds himself to the covenant and says, I will do what I am meant to do, what I'm obligated to do. You should do what you are obligated to do. So on the last day, the final demonstration, the hujjat al-balighah, the final proof, the final demonstration belongs to Allah, because Allah has followed his covenant and we have or have not followed our covenant. So because Allah said, I have followed my covenant and I obligated myself with things to do and I did them, therefore his is the final argument. So now this, Ibn Arabi will now put this all together with the lām-alif. There's a sharing in our doings, the question whether they belong to us or God. So in all of these events that we have, there's a question of who's doing what. And we have to ask who's doing what. And one of the verses which Ibn Arabi always goes to for this one is, you did not throw when you threw, but Allah threw. You did not throw when you threw, but Allah threw. So this is one of a lot of confusion, because you did not throw negates action from the Prophet ﷺ. When you threw affirms action to the Prophet ﷺ. And then there's a third, but Allah threw. So we have affirmation positive, and then we have negation, first, then affirmation, positive, and then Allah through, third. So you are his name, the Tremendous. And given that you are flush against his image, the link is established between you and him. So flush against the image that Adam, Eve, humanity is created flush against the image. So there is a link established, and this link at the bottom of the lām-alif is this part here. This is the foot, the firm binding foundation. So he said, he will love them and they will love him. Love is the link between the lover and the beloved. And it is not concealed that the shape is affectionate to its shape. And this is the complete human being who is not like anything, and there is like him nothing. And you have the letter lām-alif in the image. This letter is mixed and ambiguous to the viewer. Which of the two flanks is the lam, and which of the two is the aleph? And each of the two insert into his mate. The aleph has the first position, and the lam has the third position. So the aleph is in the ones, and the lam is in the threes. So lam is 30, which is 3 in the tens. And 3 is the first of the prime numbers. So who is first, awal, in the one, ahad? And the complete human being is first in the prime numbers. So learn this. So Allah is the first in the one, ahad. And then there's la thani, there's no second. So there's a one which is not a counting number because it doesn't come out into a second. And then there's the one in the prime numbers. The first prime number, 3, which the human being is first in the 3, in the first. And so the lam is first in 3s. The human being is first in the 3. Allah is first in the 1, the ahad, and Allah is first in the aleph. So that's how the aleph lam works. And so both are first in different categories. And then indeed, Messenger of God, ﷺ, wasallam, articulated from this presence with his statement, haya is part of faith. And half of faith is patience, and half is thankfulness. And God is most patient, intensely thankful. So half of faith is patient, and half is thankfulness. Allah is most patient, intensely thankful. And from this presence concerning his name, the faithful, the mu'min, and the mirror name, the mu'min is the mirror of the mu'min. So the faithful with a capital F is the mirror of the faithful, the small f. The faithful, small f, is the mirror of the faithful, the capital F. He thanks the slave for the blessing they bestowed on him by accepting the effects of the divine names in them. So why is it that Allah is thankful to us? Thankful to us for accepting the effects of the divine names in us. And one of the most wondrous aspects of his thankfulness is that he thanks his slave for what comes from him. So begin with the aleph in the writing just as we cited. Then the shapes of the letters are opened up, all of them, because the root shape is the line, just as the root of the line is the dot point. And the line is the aleph, so the letters are composed from him and they go back to him when they are discomposed. Thus he is their root. So the aleph is in every letter. The aleph is in every letter, it starts in every letter. So the aleph in every letter, and then the 1, the ahad, is in every number. And if you take the 1 out of that number, the number disappears. So the number 1,000 disappears when the 1 is taken out of it. It becomes 999, which is not 1,000. 1,000 disappears when the 1 is taken out. If you take the aleph out of the letter, you no longer have a letter. If you take the sound ah out of a word, of a letter, you don't have a word that is vocalized. You have a surd, you have a mute word, and you can't start with a mute word. So vocalization, the ah sound, is in all letters, and the aleph as a line is in all letters written, and then the aleph as a number 1 is in all numbers. So this is where Ibn Arabi then, he has a dream where he sees these things happening. And this is from he sees the verse in the Quran, one leg coiling with another leg. So he has this treasure chest that he opens up and sees. It says, so I opened her, and lo, in her were images of loving coiling, the loving coiling of spirits around bodies. So what is the relationship between the body and the spirit, the ruh and the nafs, the ruh and the jasad, the body, and they come together like this. And so the spirits are roiling around and coiling around the body. and the loving coiling of the spirits who love and are beloved. So the ruh, the spirit, is loved and a beloved, a lover and a beloved. And the loving coiling of the two limbs, one coiled around the other. This is like the lām-alif. And the loving coiling of the lam to the alif, and a meaning of his word, one leg coiling with another leg. And the loving coiling of the two annexations. So annexations are when something grammatically is coiled and connected to something, annexed to something. So you can say X is a child of Y. You can say my beloved creature. So my beloved creature, when Allah speaks about us, my beloved creature, we are annexed to Allah. We are connected to Allah by the grammatical my. So there's Allah, there's the creature, and there's my beloved creature, which connects the two. This, all of it, is a knowledge of anchoring linkage, cherisher, cherished. So there's a cherisher which needs and requires a cherished. So an object for the cherishing. There's the divine and under the divine. There's a powering and there's a powered. There's a knowing and there's a known. Okay? So then, with this vision that he has, Ibn Arabi moves into this a long poem, and some of the verses from that poem are this one. The neck embrace of the alif, utterly intimate, and the lam, like two lovers, floating through the years like a dream. The leg swirls around the leg, which becomes mighty, and there came to me from the two wrapped, entwined, a sign. The pulsing heart, as his meaning is in his embrace, there appears to him a bringing out to being and an annihilation. Okay. I think we won't go probably into geometric algebra right now. There's another way that this alif, lam is looked at is through this geometrical algebra, Clifford algebra. And this is based on, Ibn Arabi explores verses from Quran which have a beautiful consistency when they're seen as geometrical algebra, which is a very special kind of multidimensional mathematics. Okay, and then the last, we'll end with this poem right here, and then we can entertain comments and responses and questions. So yes, indeed, haya is a key to a door entering on Allah. And indeed, my secret heart towards this opener is an opener. If you open, you will see a light with which who eliminates a face so beautiful. Above this face, the light intensely apparent. It is as if he were in the light blocking of the night, if your two eyes view his image, a lit dawn and a lit lamp. So this is how the lām-alif leads us into great mysteries and great secrets, leads us into the Ism al-Azam, the most tremendous name of Allah, leads us into why there's confusion between what acts are attributed to Allah and what acts are attributed to us. So what are we doing? What is Allah doing? You did not throw when you threw, but Allah threw. So all of those are linked together, come together in this imagery of the lām-alif. And this is how Ibn Arabi proceeds. He never uses philosophy, he never uses theology, he never uses arguments, he never uses demonstrations. He uses grammar, lām-alif, the grammar of lām-alif, and he uses the syntax of verses in the Quran that have great truths in the syntax itself in the verses of Quran. And you could then say, as with Junaid, so Junaid said, this knowledge ours is shackled by the kitab, the book, and the sunnah. This knowledge ours is shackled by the book and the sunnah. So he is saying, we will speak from the heart, and we will say all of the things that we discover in the heart. But we will shackle the terms, the terminology, the language, we will shackle to Quran and Sunnah, so that we can speak about these truths from Quran, from Sunnah, from Hadith. So this is how Ibn Arabi proceeds, this is how Junaid proceeds. It is the way that those who see this truth and verify the truth for themselves, it's how they speak. And it's very different from the superficial ulama. It's very different from the superficial people who cannot see what's underneath. They can't see the truth, what's underneath. And rusum, the superficial ulama, the superficial people, rusum is from rasam, which is when you have a sandy tract, a sandy piece of land, and the rain comes and splats on the sand and makes a crater. But then the drop just bounces off. So the drop of water doesn't enter into the earth. It just bounces, makes a crater in the sand. So this is knowledge is water, water is knowledge. And when it comes down to people who are the sandy kind of person, it makes a crater, it makes a rasam, it makes a mark on the surface, but the water actually doesn't absorb into them. So they do not get the benefit of that knowledge. So then they look at knowledge and at moisture and at rain, and they don't see what rain is, and they don't see what knowledge is. So Ibn Arabi says, say peace to them and move along, and good for them what they're doing, and we just move along. So alhamdulillah. So I welcome any kind of comments or questions, or we'll let the moderator handle that. Thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah, jazakallahu khairan kathira bi khairil jaza for the lecture today. It's very enlightening. So to the audiences, we will open the Q&A session. You are allowed and you are invited to ask directly to Dr. Shuʿayb. Or if you don't want to ask directly, you can put your question in the chat, in the comment section, and I will read it loud to Dr. Shuʿayb, inshallah. Tafaddal mashkura. Doctor, I found at least 3 questions that has been asked privately to me. Firstly, what is your opinion on the claim that Ibn Arabi expound pluralism, or it equates all religion? It makes all religion equal. What is your opinion on that, Doctor?
Yeah, thank you. That's very good. So as you can see, so when we went through this talk, it's important for you to, for Muslims or people who are looking at aqidah, people who are looking at kalam and other kinds, and fiqh and all that. It's important to see that when you hear this discussion of the lām-alif, does it all make sense, and does it all come across as having strong aqidah and strong fiqh and strong sharia and all of that? It's very important to do that. And so I hope that you can see that in everything that's been said, this is everything has been shackled to kitab and sunnah. Everything has been expressed through kitab and sunnah. So we're talking about things that are very powerful, very shocking in a way. What's the most tremendous name of Allah? So, and we're answering what the most tremendous name of Allah is, being shackled to kitab and sunnah. So that's very important. Ibn Arabi and plural. So Ibn Arabi is shackled to the kitab and the sunnah. He's speaking from the kitab, the book, the Quran, and the sunnah. And he talks about shara'i, the many laws, but what we understand, what Ibn Arabi teaches, is that there is the first being is the aql al-awwal, the first intellect, which is the light of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is a being before time. And this being before time is the one through all of the messengers and prophets and guides are coming from that being. So they're all coming from that being, and they're all expressing that one truth. So there is one truth with many, many facets. So the idea of plurality is that any of these facets are independent and independently equal. And so this is a problem if you think that, if you don't understand where that there is a center, there's a truth that comes, so that the truth is, there's the light of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there's this truth, there's this Sharia that is clear because it is the basis of all the shara'i, of all of the laws. So as the basis of all the laws, you can't then take one of the laws, and which are faceted, and then say that it is equal to the base law, to the basic law. It comes from the basic law. And what it happens after it leaves the basic law, that's historical. Those are things that happen. So Ibn Arabi makes no judgments on other religions or other facets. He says that all guidance will be coming from this one guide. All light will be coming from this one light. And so that is saying, teaching us that we look for this one light, and we look for the one light, and then we understand of the other lights based on this one light in this guide. So pluralism is the idea that all of the manifestations are equal without tying them back to where they come from. And the problem is that many manifestations of the light have not maintained their connection to light, and because they haven't maintained their connection to the light, they can't be held up as this is a light which is equal to the light which is the one that's coming from this source. So we have to understand the difference between source and how things manifest in this world. So for Ibn Arabi, the way he handles all of that is he's going to say, we're shackled to the Kitab and the Sunnah. So we're going to speak from Kitab and Sunnah. And if that is affirmative and affirming of other lights, other guidances, then it's because the Quran then is affirming other lights and other ways and other paths. But we do this shackled to the Kitab, to the Quran.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. We have another two questions here from Nuruddin. He asked, Prof, I heard views that state that a person cannot make nature, including humans, as a sign of the existence and also of God's majesty, because God is not similar to everything. Analogy is impossible. Hope you can respond. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the story of the most tremendous name. Because there is no one nature or human being or anything which can be pointed to which is more indicative of Allah than another one. So because Allah is not like any, and the human being is not like any, there's only Allah, one, there's only humanity, one. There aren't two humanities. So because there are not two humanities and there's not two Allahs, therefore they are distinct, and they are not. They can't be merged, and they are distinct, and they can't. And so, because they're distinct, there can't be this analogy that this one is like this one and like that one, because there is a confusing likeness, and therefore we take the reason that each person you look at is a tremendous name of Allah, is the most tremendous name of Allah. And each piece of nature, every rock, every tree, every plant, everything is an indication of Allah. No one of those is more indicative than another. That's because there is no similarity between nature, creation, and the creator. So if the creator and the creation were similar, and they are not distinct, then you could say if Allah is transcendent, then this one is like Allah, but a little bit more. But we say there's nothing like Allah. And so there can't be anything. This is more like Allah, and this is less like Allah. And because you can see nature as more or less like Allah, because they're always distinct, and there is no analogy between them, because of that, you are the most tremendous name of Allah, because you indicate Allah. And there's no indicator to Allah which is better or worse, more like Allah, less like Allah. There are always indicators of Allah who is always distinct, and therefore you are the most tremendous name of Allah.
Thank you, Doctor. We have another question here by Amirul Mukminin. In the case of understanding lām-alif, for example, is the Futuh and Kashaf to Ibn Arabi only can be obtained with rituals or also can be obtained via philosophical thinking with a pure heart?
Yeah, so the intellect defines. The intellect is an aql, and aql comes from iqal, which is the hobble of the camel. So the aql is meant to hobble us so that we don't, like a camel, go run off and hurt ourselves or hurt others. So the aql is meant to rein in and to hobble and to slow us down. So this is why the aql is important, because it tells us how we can live a life where we're reined in and we don't go crazy and we don't go hurt ourselves and we don't go hurt others. And that's why we have an aql, and that's why you want to have an aql. The aql is a constraint. Constraint has no help in understanding what is unconstrained and what is infinite. So there's no way to understand what is infinite and unconstrained and undefined and inaccessible using definitions. So definitions are putting a fence around something. So definitions will not help us with the Zat. And so we cannot approach the Zat because she is inaccessible and undefinable, not definable, cannot be constricted and cannot be accessed and cannot be constrained. And so the aql al-awwal is the first constraint. The aql al-awwal is the first constraint. So when the Zat looks at the mirror, and the mirror, and the first image that comes, the aql al-awwal, is the first constraint. It's the first constraint of the infinite, unconstrained Zat in this one image called the aql al-awwal.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor. There is also another question here. What is the sect that Ibn Arabi belongs to? Is it Shia or is it Sunni?
So Ibn Arabi is speaking from the Kitab and Sunnah, and so there is no sect or there is no madhab, and there is, and so when he is reading about, when he is telling us about the fiqh, he looks at the fiqh in about almost 2,000 pages. So he has 2,000 pages of fiqh questions that he approaches and looks at. He looks at all of the madhahib, all of the schools, all of the positions of the ulama, and he tells us the truth of each one of them. So he tells us the truth behind that every madhahib has a truth, and so he looks at that and he gives us insight. If you can go down to the true source, you can find insight in all of these different positions about the fiqh, and therefore he sees all of the madhahib, and he defines himself by none of them. So he is in a very special position. Ibn Arabi is unique. Is given a very special position. He is given a very special position by having a mirage where he sees all of the prophets, and he meets them, and he joins them in prayer and salat, and he has a special relationship with so many of the messengers and prophets, and this special relationship is also one where he goes to the source, and he goes to the source, which is, he calls it the special face, which is in every created being, where the Quran, the Torah, and the Injil were revealed. So when he goes there, this is far beyond, because it is close to the source. It's far beyond madahib and kalam and philosophies, and it's far beyond religions. It's far beyond sects and all of those kinds of things. And so he's speaking from a place which is beyond the intellect. And so the intellect is the one that makes these divisions and these categories. It's an intellectual activity. It's a defining activity. It's if we're trying to explore what is reality, it won't be accessible to the intellect. So it can't be accessible to the intellect, because the intellect is defining what is undefinable.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. We have another question here from Marlina Ramdi. If we are beginner to Ibn Arabi and we want to know more about Ibn Arabi teachings and its link to Al-Quran and Sunnah, what is the first step or books that we should do and read? How do we approach this?
So Ibn Arabi always starts in the middle of things, and I do the same when I'm translating and conveying Ibn Arabi's message. So there is no introduction or very simple way of looking at Ibn Arabi except to go straight in. So when we went straight in, I didn't make any comments about who Ibn Arabi is, when he was born, and what his school of thought might be, which he doesn't have a school of thought, and all of those things, because we just go into, our first slide was the lām-alif comes out twice in negation and twice in affirmation, 2 positives, 2 negatives. So we just go straight in. And we go straight into lām-alif, and then as we're going through lām-alif, we're learning about grammars. And so we look at the grammars and we see how those grammars work. And so for every other, thinker and school of thought and all of that, you have the intellect, and the intellect says, give me an introduction, give me a thesis, give me a hypothesis. Say that A goes to B goes to C. Tell me what you're going to say and what the conclusion is in the first paragraph, and then the second paragraph, explore that, and then the third paragraph, give me the conclusion again. This is not the way Ibn Arabi works. So that's the way the intellect works. The way Ibn Arabi works, he is shackled to Kitab and Sunnah. And you can also look at the Quran, and when you look at the Quran, you do not see why isn't the first surah an introduction? Why does the chronology get all over the place? Why are the stories told once, twice, 3 times in different places? Different parts of stories told in some places, and different other parts are told in other places. So why aren't the stories all told from A, B, C, D, E, F, G? So that's because that's not how reality works. The world doesn't work that way. That's the way the intellect works, and the Quran is not accessible to the intellect. When someone is speaking from the source, their speech from the source is not accessible by the intellect. So the intellects then don't like that, so they make arguments against anyone who speaks from the source, because it's not their way. And so Ibn Arabi says, leave them to their way, let them use their intellects. For us, we are going to go to the living, to the one who is always present, the source. And the story is told that Abu Madian is sitting with some of the hadith scholars, and the hadith scholars are saying, so-and-so transmitted from so-and-so, transmitted from so-and-so, this hadith. And then they'll say the hadith. And Abu Madian would say to them, so where is so-and-so? Who's that first transmitter? It's, oh, he's dead. So, okay, the second one, where's he? So he's dead. What about the third one? Oh, he's dead. And he says, you take your knowledge dead from the dead. We take our knowledge living from the living, the one who's alive, al-Hayy. So that's the difference. And so they take their knowledge directly from al-Hayy, directly from the one who's living. And then when they speak about the knowledge that they have received, they shackle it to the Quran and Sunnah.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. We have another 2 questions here from Nuruddin. Firstly, he asks, Prof, can you explain about the alif, divine, cloak within the ba creation? What does it mean that Ibn Arabi stated that every reality is assigned towards God? Does Ibn Arabi also speak of the dimension of God's transcendence?
With dimensions, the 0 point, so the 0 dimension, so you can look at it as a we have a blank page, and so the blank page, because there's no comparison or analogy or likeness between creation and creator. So we talk about creation right now. So if we talk about creation right now, there's first we take a blank page. So you take a piece of paper, and it's a blank page. So this is the tablet upon which something can be written. And so when this tablet is there, it's blank, everything is possible. So if you see a blank piece of paper, then anything is possible. the next thing that you write on that paper could be, the equation that explains E equals mc squared. Or the next thing you could write be something which describes how the weak force does something and something. You could be drawing the most beautiful painting that's ever been painted. So a blank slate, a blank page is ready for anything. And so this is the blank page of humanity. And Adam and Eve, when they're a lump of clay, and then they're breathed into with the divine names. So this is the blank page. They are susceptible or are subject to and receptive to everything that can come to them. So then if we then put a dot on there, that dot is a point, and we say that, what's the point? We say, what's the point? And it brings our focus. So when we have a dot, everything focuses on that one thing. And then after that, if we put another dot on, we now make a line. So now we enter into one dimension. So another dot from this dot makes a line and makes it one dimension. And then if we put a third dot on, we have now a third dot. We have the beginning of inside and outside. So when there are three dots and they're connected, there's an outside and there's an inside. So inside, outside comes when there's two dimensions. And then if we put a third one on, we enter into three dimensions. And with three dimensions, there's an inside, outside, and then there's something else. There's a volume, there's a depth. And depth means that something it's this point here and this point here. If they are in a volume, the depth is in the same axis of the y-axis, but it's in a different position. So it's the same in one way, but it's different. And this is the dimension of meaning when we talk about something being deep and having depth. So this is how dimensions work for creation. And then there's one more dimension after that. And we don't know how many dimensions go from there. So right now it's important to see, so we had a question about cosmology. It's important to see that we are in a three-dimensional surface. So in a two-dimensional surface, like on a ball, you can go on the ball and you can go anywhere on that ball, walk and walk and walk, and never come to the end. And so that's a two-dimension surface. We're in a three-dimensional surface. No matter how far we go that way, we won't come to the end. No matter how far we go in any of the three dimensions, 6 directions, we can't get to the end. So we are in a three-dimensional surface. So how do we, what happens if we're in a three-dimensional surface? We're in a shadow play, which has a curtain, and this curtain is three-dimensional. So I am a three-dimensional shadow of a puppet, which is one more dimension, which has light projected on the one more dimension shadow of the puppet, which could cast a shadow which is 3 dimensions. So I'm in this three-dimensional curtain and surface. So if I wanted to find out what the puppet looks like, who I am, what I look like, then I have to leave the three-dimensional surface, go to the puppet, and see what the puppet looks like. And that can't be done by going this way, this way, this way, that way, any of the 6 directions. So then you have to go a 7th direction. So where is that 7th direction? And that's what the path that we are on, that the seekers are on. They're seeking to see the puppet. And so then they can see the light as it hits the puppet. And then they realize that this world is a shadow of another world.
Right, jazakallahu khairan katsira. And I think this is the last question that we should receive today from Nuruddin. Prof, can you explain the meaning of the concept of Ibn Arabi's cosmography?
So when we look at grammar, we're looking at the grammar of the cosmos, which is the same as the grammar of the languages. It's the grammar. So we say in the grammar of letters that every letter that's written has the aleph inside. Every letter that is spoken has the inside, the aleph inside. And every number that there is has the 1 inside it. If you take away the 1, the number disappears. If you take away the aleph, the sound disappears. If you take away the aleph, the letter disappears. So that's the cosmology of grammar. That's also the grammar of cosmology. So we are beings who have number and alif somewhere. And if that alif is removed from us, then we don't exist. If the alif sound is removed from us, then we can't be heard. And if the number who we are is removed, we disappear. So that's the cosmology that Ibn Arabi shows us. It's a cosmology that we, as we understand the lām-alif, we then understand how cosmology works. So this is, and it can't be done, as I think, as you can see, we have to, when we're talking about cosmology and Ibn Arabi, we go straight to how writing works, how grammar works. And this takes him outside of the way that classical cosmologists would have worked, the classical Muslim thinkers or other thinkers through the Middle Ages and or ancient times, the Greeks. It also takes us out of modern physics as well, because it's what he's doing is explaining that the cosmos follows a grammar, and grammar is the one that we already know from Kitab and Sunnah. So if you understand the grammar from Kitab and Sunnah, you'll understand the grammar of the cosmos and where we are and who we are, what we are, and where we're going and why we were created. So.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Shuʿayb Eric Winkel, for the Q&A session just now. And I would like, on the behalf of Tradisi, I would like to thank you for your willingness to join us today in giving us such an enlightening lecture. And for all the audiences, I would like to say thank you so much for your willingness to join this session today, and also giving up such critical and also beautiful questions to Dr. Eric Winkel. Alhamdulillah. And with that, I would say that we should postpone our session today. And this is not the first and last, this is not the last session we have with Dr. Eric Winkel, inshallah. In the future, we will have more sessions with him. So stay tuned for our programs at Tradisi. With that, I would say, Jazakumullahu khairan kathira for everyone today. Alhamdulillah. Let us all close this session with Tasbih Kifara and Suratul Asr. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر جزاكم الله خيرا كثيرا بخير الجزاء والله الموفق إلى أقوام الطريق السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.